in Leicestershire. Right, can everyone see me? I can just about see you all sitting out on the grass there in the sunshine. Can we just have a quick show of hands? Who here doesn't like politics? And who here doesn't want to be the Prime Minister?
No, don't want to be the Prime Minister.
Great. And who here is Catherine Evans, leader of Freedom Alliance? Oh, I was hoping there'd only be one of us. Well, that would be me. You might be wondering then why I'm a leader of a political party. I've never aspired to be a politician. I've never had any designs on carving a career in politics. I'm not interested in the kudos, the money, business opportunities, or any protection it could bring. Many are, but not me. So, why am I here then? A single mum who gardens for a living? What possible reason do I have? Well, it's quite simple. No one is coming to save us. My story began 5 years ago when my quiet, TV-free, social media-free, politically homeless life was rudely interrupted by a virus in China. The news filled with people dying, wet markets and bats, Trump flinging accusations about, and the media tracked its progress across Europe and into the UK. As the head count rose and ludicrous lockdowns ensued, something crazy seemed to happen. Everyone became an authority on COVID, what it was, and where it came from, and what we should all do. That one and only narrative peddled by the mainstream media, amplified 1,000,000 times by everyone who swallowed it. I seriously began to doubt my sanity. Either everyone else in the country had gone mad, or I had. Surely our civil liberties were being attacked. The media weren't telling the truth. Something else was at play. I desperately needed to find others that agreed with me. Now, have you heard of the butterfly effect? That's where one tiny, insignificant action can trigger huge and unpredicted effects on complex systems later on. I can pinpoint my butterfly flapping its wings moment. I came across a white rose sticker on a bus stop, and it read, "Your TV is brainwashing you." Well, I knew that. That's why I didn't have a TV. But crucially, I now knew that other people thought that too. And maybe, just maybe, there were other things we would agree on. Now, I didn't do social media. I'd never heard a telegram, so what followed was a baptism of fire. But I had to learn fast and act fast as more government overreach, lockdowns, development of oversold and undertested treatments and mandates followed. I discovered a protest march in London against the lockdowns and the mandates, and I went down apprehensive because I didn't know it was just going to be me and a few weirdos and a dog. But I found people, thousands and thousands of people, many organised and giving out leaflets. I'd found my family. Back home, I founded a stand in the park in my area, and I discovered the light paper, and a world of protest marches, resistance and rebellion opened up. I loved it. And I say that with hindsight, for they were dark days. The pressure was on. I engaged with as many grassroots groups and individuals as I could. The Liverpool People's Resistance, yay! Together, British Lions for Freedom, NHS 100k and more. Getting the general public to wake up and act was paramount. There was no political party in Parliament fighting for our rights and freedoms. We had to do it ourselves. I came across Freedom Alliance watching an online debate. I was gobsmacked. Here was a political party that was created by grassroots activists specifically to fight against government and corporate overreach, the lockdowns, the mandates and other coercive measures. They knew that protesting in the streets wasn't enough. We need to take our protest to the ballot box. They were so different. Nothing like the mainstream. No wealthy sponsors. No payoffs or orders from corporate masters. Not even about left versus right, but what was right for the people and what's wrong with the system. They were not afraid to speak out against the narrative and say what was unpopular. They were all volunteers, just ordinary people, just like you and me. So I became a member of the party, not something I'd ever done before, and I had no idea what to expect. Soon after, a member was standing in a by-election in a neighbouring county, and I jumped at the chance to support him with his leafleting and canvassing, if he could just get one of those bastards out. And I got invited to the count on election day. That was an eye-opening experience. Once the ballot papers were counted, the spoiled papers were counted and shown to the candidates and their teams, how they laughed. How they mocked those spoiled papers, cheering, woo, when the one with the penis is shown. There's always the one with the penis, apparently. They look down their noses at the expletives and insults. There's always a one with an essay of vitriol. There's always the cap drawing to patronise, and the one with, I do not consent, just gets a shrug of indifference. And the ones with, you're all as bad as each other, they just get feigned sympathy. Ah, we're all as bad as each other. Aww. I've been to many counts since, and the response from the mainstream candidates is the same. Hilarity, mockery, pity and indifference. They have everything to gain from a spoiled paper. They have everything to gain from non-voters. You bring them joy, comfort, security. Your wasted ballot papers are nothing more than a mat for them to wipe their feet on as they swan gloating over the threshold to Parliament or into the local council. At the general election, when I was standing as a candidate, one spoiled paper that really stood out to me said, "Who are you?" written right next to my name. Nothing else on the paper. What a waste. Tick the box and find out. When I think of the countless hours put into leafleting, door to door, talking to people, week in, week out, outreach in the town centre, debates I attended, articles in the local paper, how do you not know who I am? Every spoilt paper, every non-voter, a failed opportunity to turn the beat of a butterfly's wings into a hurricane. Labour knew it. That night, the Labour candidates did their celebratory photography around 11 p.m, whilst the makeup was still fresh. So confident were they that they would be announced the winners in the early hours of the morning. And that night, I learnt a valuable lesson. Now, I know nothing in life comes easy, and our battles are no different. Life is hard, but we can choose our hard. Standing on the stage like this, talking to people now, is hard. But having no freedom of speech is harder. Running a political party is hard. Having no democracy at all will be harder. Running around the country supporting candidates standing for election is hard. Not even being able to leave our 15-minute cities will be harder. I've chosen my hard. Fighting to protect our farmers, our food security and quality, our small businesses is hard. Eating the bugs will be harder. Fighting to stop digital ID and central bank digital currency systems is hard. Being tracked, traced, monitored and controlled by the state will be a damn sight harder. Fighting the WHO, the WEF and other supranational unelected bodies is hard. Giving up my bodily autonomy and my moral compass would be near impossible. I've chosen my hard. You choose your hard. So I'm going to keep on with Freedom Alliance, and we're going to keep on campaigning for the life we want and against the things we don't. We're going to keep on standing candidates. You could be one of them. As the alternative doesn't bear thinking about, I say, go hard or go home. Thank you. Speaking of elections, a recent poll of voters showed that 19% of voters vote tactically. That is to say, they voted for someone they didn't really want, just to attempt to stop someone they really dislike getting elected. It comes as no surprise that 20% of the country voted Labour in the general election then. How many voted for a mainstream party just to stop a different mainstream party winning without realising they are all cheeks of the same arse? We live in times where there's a huge increase in online campaigning groups and social media influencers seeking to affect our voting habits. What has traditionally been a left-wing activity to damage the Conservatives is increasingly being used across other vested interests, including discouraging casting any vote at all or spoiling your ballot paper. It may not always be apparent, but their aim is to serve a crippling blow to a particular party or side. They use a range of tactics, but dividing people into broad coalitions or groups is highly effective. For example, labelling ideologies or actions as right-wing, far-right, nationalism, communism, conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers. I'm sure we've all heard of them. There's no clear picture of the reasons why an individual votes, but patterns do emerge. Habit, punishment, support, confidence. Habit. Now, we all know someone who's been voting Labour since their granddad was a boy. Punishment. We all know people who are so unhappy with Brexit or the latest war or lies and corruption that's been uncovered that they voted to punish the party or the MP that was responsible. Support. I'm fortunate to know many people that support Freedom Alliance based on our shared values, our manifesto, and the actions of the leadership team in campaigning. Confidence. This is essentially gambling. Tactical voting by taking risks based on perceptions of a party or a competitor party and their likelihood of winning. A recent YouGov poll, if you believe them, suggests more people on the left would vote tactically simply to keep reform out. This is deliberate to keep the voters choosing between the mainstream parties, the same bought and paid for parties, where the same puppeteers will be pulling the same strings. They do not want the smaller, uncorrupted, people-led parties like us getting a look in. They do not want the non-voters to rise and have their say. Their say is unknown, dangerous. Approximately half the population is silent on who governs the UK. Should they choose to be heard, the government, the system itself, could be revolutionised. At Freedom Alliance, we believe the first past the post system needs to go. Millions are left disenfranchised and unheard as safe seats mean large percentages of people are unrepresented. But we understand we cannot change the system when we're not part of it. But we encourage people to vote for what they actually want, be it national or local matters, ideological, or just for a specific person to represent them. Try not to think about who will be Prime Minister or which party will dominate the local council, because we risk ending up with the usual suspects, the uni party, and nothing changing. Now, Freedom Alliance has teamed up with some awesome parties to work together with a principal aim to get the uni party out. These are Alliance from Democracy and Freedom, who are here today, Putting Crewe and Nantwich First, the English Democrats, the Populist Party, and Sovereignty, which is based in Scotland. Check them out if you've not heard of them. We've got some leaflets on our stall. If you want to have a look and find out about them too, you can take them away. We have agreed to work together so we do not split the vote. Rather, ensure there's a spread of all our candidates across the region. It makes sense not to have our candidates up against each other in elections when there's already 4 to 5 of the uni party represented. We can then all stand out as the real opposition, the alternative party, the protest party, the local people's party. We go further than that again. We support each other's candidates on social media and even help out with boots on the ground campaigning. Yeah, we've got our differences, but that's okay. A win for one is a win for all. We meet up at events, talk together frequently and cooperate and assist in lots of ways. And as we can do this on the outside of Parliament, we can do this on the inside too, once elected. We are not a threat to each other, we are working together. And we encourage everyone who wants change to do the same. If you know of any other upcoming parties that are similar in outlook to us, do tell them about us, we will be happy to hear from them. If you know people who do not vote or haven't registered to vote, tell them how important their voice is. Tell them there are parties that want to hear from them. Ask them, how bad do things need to get before they use their one democratic tool? Ask them if they would prefer a dictatorship, an oligarchy, a theocracy, a one world government. Ask them to choose their hard. I mentioned before that the erosion of free speech will be hard. Well, it's already underway. The last 15 years have witnessed the quiet yet relentless chipping away of our freedoms that we took for granted. Slowly and incrementally, with plenty of distraction to shroud them. Freedoms to assemble, to protest, to celebrate, to question and challenge, to live without excessive government overreach or censorship. Bill after bill has been brought in and passed, often with the righteous aim to protect or prevent crime. But with each new act, our fundamental rights become slightly more conditional, slightly more restricted. The Terrorism Act 2000 was replaced and expanded upon by the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act 2015. Among the changes were duties placed on councils and education establishments to report on people they thought to be at risk of radicalisation in an effort to combat terrorism. Although there was provision for freedom of speech, it inevitably led to the cracking down and cancellation of debate and shutting down of academic discussion. The Prevent Unit, set up to deal with supposed radicalised people, has been plagued with issues from communities claiming harassment, and underfunding has led to terrorists still arising from under its nose, such as the murderer of David Amos in 2021, the perpetrators of the Parsons Green train bombing and London Bridge attacks in 2015, and more recently, Axel Rudakabana in 2024. Nowadays, you can be arrested for suggesting the government have got it wrong on what groups they choose to prescribe. You too can be a terrorist supporter simply for putting the words action and Palestine in an unapproved sentence. The police gained increased powers from the new acts such as this, and our freedom of assembly has suffered a similar fate. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022 expanded their powers to grant protests deemed disruptive or annoying. The police gained more discriminatory powers to silence voices they find inconvenient and that don't fit the narrative through the Public Order Act 2023. Many of us here will have attended protest marches over recent years. Some, unfortunately, have been arrested. We now see protests that once would have been tolerated being shut down, and others where protesters are protected or even bussed in. I'm sure we can think of a few recently. Whether it's climate protests or anti-lockdown rallies, the government will choose order over dealing with the messy business of dissent. From government whistleblowers to the average man in the pub, our freedom of speech is being stifled with little resistance. The latest is the Employment Rights Bill. Not only is it potentially disastrous for the hospitality industry, the bill includes a clause to put the onus on employers to restrict freedom of speech. Private conversations overheard by third parties may cause distress or be construed as harassment. Banter bouncers will be needed to monitor and report on your inappropriate banter. Whether it's a private conversation in a pub, a WhatsApp group, or anywhere on the internet, there's a law to surveil, repress, censor, or criminalise you. In Scotland, the Hate Crime Act Act extends to anything perceived to stir up hate, including comedy, being a new crime punishable by up to 7 years in jail. That itself is a joke, isn't it? Across the UK, we have the new non-crime hate incidents, supposedly designed to monitor community tensions and magically prevent a descent into criminal behaviour. In reality, any incident at all that is perceived to be a hostility, even if there is no victim, can still be recorded as a non-crime hate incident by the police. Across the media, we are constantly reminded of perpetrators of these heinous crimes under these laws. Lucy Connolly, Alison Pearson, Monty Toms, a Christian praying in the street. The list goes on. The Online Safety Act came into being last week, again on the surface to protect the young and vulnerable, in reality turning the internet into one of the most heavily regulated places. From porn to protests, so much is now censored that many are turning to VPNs to bypass the rules. As many of us experienced during the COVID era, free speech around vaccine harms and abuses of our human rights was almost censored out of existence, and that was without such legislation. Platforms banned and removed content as they wished, and now they're under a duty to do so or risk heavy fines. It's on them to decide what is harmful. It could be anything from legitimate speech, satire, criticism, and all protest swept away alongside genuinely dangerous material. The Investigatory Powers Act 2016 gave the government sweeping new abilities to swoop in on our browsing history, our emails and other communications and collect data on us. We see greater surveillance on the public and more cameras in shops and being used by the police on the high street. When surveillance becomes routine, privacy ceases to be a right and becomes a privilege that can be revoked at any time. Then there's the Data Use and Access Act, another quiet slippage, another incremental step. This could enable mass surveillance, a national ID network, AI decision making without appeal, your data shared without your consent, making us all more controllable. The Digital Services Act, meanwhile, gives authorities new tools to demand the removal of content and the identification of anonymous users. This strikes at the heart of online privacy and anonymity, both of which are essential for whistleblowers, activists and ordinary citizens who want to speak out without fear of retaliation. When you know you could be identified and prosecuted for what you say online, you think twice before you speak at all. Taken all together, these laws create a society in which government and powerful corporations act as the ultimate arbiters of what can be said, what can be seen, and who can speak. The chilling effect is real. People will self-censor, avoid protests, keep their heads down, not because they're criminals, because they will fear the risks of standing out. What will they throw at us next? When does it all stop? The more legislation that is passed, the harder it becomes to unravel and remove the net that quashes our freedoms and fundamental rights. This shit is getting scary, and I haven't even started on digital ID and CBDCs. And as I'm writing this speech and choosing what to say, it's apparent to me I don't need to tell you lot about digital IDs and CBDCs. You know what they are, where they lead, who's behind it. You guys know your stuff. I'm preaching to the converted. And I'm also aware that if published online, this way may well be censored or removed. It's vital, though, that our message extends further than the safe haven echo chambers created for us and by ourselves. We must all play our part to reach the masses. The UK has a proud history of standing up for civil liberties, of fighting for rights that others take for granted. But rights are only real if we defend them. and not enough have. Each new law, each new restriction passed without enough protest or backlash. Unlike the pandemic times when restrictions and government and corporate overreach was in your face and heavily restricting our lives and causing massive division across families in the nation, we find the freedoms we cherished have been eroded, not in a single catastrophic moment, but in a series of small, almost inevitable steps. Do the population at large not value their freedoms and rights? I would argue that until people are personally negatively affected, either they do not see or choose not to see the tyranny upon them. Will the Online Safety Act be a catalyst for action? Will net zero policies stopping you move freely wake people up? Will the demise of cash leave people realising they've been shortchanged? Everyone has their own line in the sand. Freedom Alliance has a manifesto, policies and campaigns that demonstrate our line in the sand. And I ask you to get behind it, to challenge the current trajectory with us. We believe in freedom from corporate interference and lobbying, autonomy, sovereignty and rights of the individual, freedom of expression, association and of movement, limited, transparent and accountable governance. Our digital ID policy places digital freedom front and centre. Freedom Alliance stands out as the UK's leading political voice for digital privacy, personal freedom and offline alternatives. While other parties embrace digital IDs and CBDCs and AI-driven surveillance, we stand firmly against coercive technology and in defence of civil liberties and choice. We fight against the creeping tide of surveillance, reject corporate overreach into personal data and ensure that the future of technology is one where freedom and not control remains the guiding principle. We believe technology should serve us, not control us. We want to protect, we want freely both on and offline. We defend cash, anonymous payments and access to services without digital ID. We reject CBDCs and systems that restrict or control personal spending. We would ban biometric tracking and facial recognition now in everyday use. We would preserve access to public services without apps or big tech dependence. We resist social credit systems and AI-driven governance models. We fought against vaccine passports and we will fight again against the BRIC card or indeed any mandatory digital ID that would make us all reliant on a pass to go about our daily lives. Our commitment to using cash can be demonstrated by how we conduct ourselves. We accept cash memberships, so if you want to see us on our stall, you can become a member today for a tenner. We promote the use of cash. We have leaflets and posters you can take away and share in and around your local shops. We demand a future where tech serves the people, not the state or the corporations. This is not a fringe issue. This is the core freedom fight of the 21st century. We want you to protect your right to think, speak, move and live without digital coercion. Without any coercion. We would withdraw from the supranational organisations such as the World Health Organization, the UN, the WEF. We have campaigned against giving up our sovereignty to the WHO. Unfortunately, yet more IHR regulations have been agreed to. We campaign against net zero policies. Our position reflected in our farming and agricultural policy, transport policy and others. The climate change scam, weaponised worries over environmental concerns is yet another tool to monitor and control us. We campaigned against the Climate and Nature Bill. We campaign against everything they throw at us, but we must compel others to action if we are to achieve our goals. I get it. I get the apathy, the disinterest in politics. The way it's portrayed, let's face it, it's a bit of a turn-off.
What's the point, people say. Politicians don't take any interest in us. You see them on the telly with their dry, boring voices, their samey, slimy words, their samey, shiny suits, the same indifference to people they've got nothing in common with. Their disingenuous, self-serving, backstabbing gamesmanship, their right honourable beige waffle, vagueness and lies. Their puppet facades with their strings pulled by shadowy billionaires, technocrats, the markets, the web. There's not much to like.
But it doesn't have to be this way. Challenge these laws, challenge these people, challenge the system itself. Our inaction is their strength. Our own apathy and distrust is weaponised against us. Speak out, organise, act. Let's create a political area that matters, that we value, that works for us, not them. Apparently, it takes around 3.5% of a population to instigate and achieve change. This has been shown around the world through time. That's 3.5% of a population who didn't wait to be saved. 3.5% who chose their heart together. One of the most difficult things to do as a leader is to inspire others to follow. What can we say to encourage people to switch from unawake to awake and from passively awake to action? Parties like ours, campaign groups, lobbyists, we are all nothing unless we transmit a message and energy that is a catalyst for action. We are not here to entertain you. Me, Tech, Bridget, Fiona, we are not the movement that's going to revolutionise. You are. When we call for action, we are not generalising or chewing the fat. We are speaking directly to each and every individual who listens. From our hearts and minds to yours, we are living proof that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. We are you. You can be us. And collectively, we can win back our freedoms.
Thank you for listening.